Hey guys, thanks for joining me and subscribing here to my little channel so that we can have these conversations. Today, I want to say I am not an expert or a doctor or anything like that, but I want to talk about ADHD. Now, I want to talk both about my experience as far as me trying to get diagnosed with ADHD, as well as my children and how we got here and where we are at in our journey. Now, I want to preface this by saying that I am a believer in the science. I, for the most part, trust medical and mental health professionals to guide me through this stuff because that's what they specialize in. But I'm a little skeptical about this topic, to be honest. So let's get into why I'm skeptical. This goes back to, I want to say it was 2020 when my daughter was around like 4 or 5, and I took her to her well check appointment with a doctor who I love and respected so much. She's no longer working in pediatrics, so we don't see her anymore, but I completely 100% love this doctor. She goes, "She's really busy. Jasmine's a really busy child." And I go, "She is." And she said, "Have you ever considered maybe getting her evaluated just to be safe? I'm not saying she hasn't, I'm not saying she doesn't. She's not hyper, she's just busy." And what I mean by that is she just can't sit still, but she's not bouncing off the wall. She's just always doing something. I had a hard time finding babysitters for when she was on school breaks because she just never stops. So it's not like she's that kid that you can just be like, let's put a movie on so you can relax, because she's like, no, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, I want to do that, I want to do this. She'll talk your ear off. She's just busy, which after researching it, I find out that is how it presents more in girls than boys. So I took her and I got her evaluated, but again, this was 2020, so it was all over video. I was shocked that there was no questionnaires to send to her teachers, because when I worked in pediatrics, we had these long forms that the teacher filled out, the parents filled out. Sometimes they would give it to you to give to like anybody else that knows the child well enough so they could really look at their behavior and their behavior in different settings, because sometimes it's like they're just being naughty for their parents, but they're actually able to sit and focus at school. Nothing like that happened. I got on a Zoom call with the psychiatrist, answered a handful of questions, and he's like, "Yeah, she has ADHD. Do you want her to be on medication?" And I was like, "I don't think so. Like, she's so little. She's not even in school, so it's not like it's affecting her learning. Like, no, at this point I don't, especially with such an easy evaluation." So it kind of went on to say, okay, I consider her to have ADHD, but for now we're just going to stay away from medication and see if there's other tools that we could use. And when she started kindergarten, they were very easily able to redirect her. So I don't know to this day if she has it. But when she had that evaluation, the doctor said, "So which one of her parents has ADHD?" And I was like, "I don't think either of us does." And he goes, "Almost every time there's a child with ADHD, one or both of the parents have to have it." And I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I don't think we have it. Fast forward a couple years later, I start therapy for myself. And my therapist, after me telling her my life's problems, my trouble with like organization and managing stress and my anxiety and my train of thought, all these things, she goes, "Have you ever been evaluated for ADHD?" And I was like, "No, I haven't, but it's been mentioned before." And that's one of the questions they ask you as an adult is like, has anybody suspected this before? I was a decent student, but I had trouble focusing. One of the reasons I had trouble focusing is the fact that I can't stop talking. And that followed me through into the workplace. And it's almost embarrassing as an adult to be like, I get in trouble for talking too much, but I often do. So I would get reviews from work and they'd be like, "Sandra, you do an awesome job. You're a hard worker, but please stop talking to people." I had a coworker who was like, not in a mean way, but just like, honestly, like, "I'm curious, do you think it's some kind of a compulsion? Because it seems like if there's an empty space, you have to talk." And I feel that. Like, I feel that inside. Like, I just have to keep talking. So I told them, yes, this is something that's kind of, been worrisome my whole life. And they sent me to meet with a psychiatrist. And when I meet with a psychiatrist, for some reason, they seem very hesitant to entertain the idea of ADHD in an adult. So they go, I'm identifying a lot of anxiety. Do you feel anxious? Heck to the yes. I feel anxious all the time. Okay, let's put you on anxiety and depression medication. So they put me on different antidepressants. I could not find one that worked for me and didn't cause bad side effects. I was losing my hair at an alarming rate. And if you know me, I love having long hair. It's always been a thing. I rarely have ever had short hair. And so for me to lose my hair, it bothered me a lot. And I told the psychiatrist, I might be a little depressed now, but if I go bald, I'm going to go off the deep end. And I brought it up. I don't think I'm depressed and anxious because I have just depression and anxiety. I think it stems from ADHD. Every time they would do the little evaluation, they would say I'm like borderline and then write it off. And they would say, we have to treat your anxiety before we can treat your ADHD. So I just requested a new psychiatrist. They said the same thing. A third psychiatrist. She seemed more willing to work with me. So like she said, okay, we have these medications that do treat depression and anxiety, but they have shown an increase in focus with people. So this might be a good one for you. Ultimately, I was not happy on the medications. I felt like it made me almost a little bit worse in certain areas. It helped in some, but it was not what I was looking for. And then I lost my Medicaid. I was on Medicaid. I got dropped because I had a raise in income and I no longer qualified. So I had to get on my work insurance. And if you've ever been somebody on Medicaid and you make more money, you get kicked off, but the money that you make more that pushed you just over the limit is nowhere near the cost of your health care. So now I'm paying these high monthly premiums for my health insurance. And I was seeing the psychiatrist every 2 weeks, sometimes weekly, depending on what was going on with my medication. $50. It would have been a $50 copay, and then paying for a medication that I might take for a week or two and discontinue. I couldn't afford it. And I was frustrated. I was frustrated that everybody's like, well, you probably likely have ADHD, but we're not going to worry about that right now. So I'm currently unmedicated. And I don't know if I will ever pursue a diagnosis and treatment again, or if I'll just try to find ways on my own to increase my own focus and productivity, because getting diagnosed and treated as an adult seems like impossible. So that is crazy compared to my experience with my children getting diagnosed. Now to my boys. I have 6-year-old twin boys, and we have been dealing with some behavioral issues since about age 4 is when it really kicked in, when their daycare turned more into like a preschool setting, because once they got to the 4 and 5's room, it was more like, okay, we're going to sit and do structured learning versus we're going to just play and make little crafts. Once that started, the behavioral issues got worse. Now, daycare in this country is a story for another time, and I will definitely make a video about that experience because it has not been pleasant. But one of my sons got kicked out because he repeatedly was climbing the fence from the playground into the parking lot and trying to run home, which is obviously problematic. So they kicked him out of daycare, and I had to roll him into both of them because I wasn't going to leave one kid there, even though they're like, well, you can leave. Yeah, I'm going to leave one of my twins at one daycare and take the other to a new one. Anyways, I had to move them daycares, starting to have behavioral problems there, put them in kindergarten when it was time. And my kids are all fall babies. They're all November. So they start late, which is what happened to me too, which is where they didn't turn 5 by the cutoff. So by the time they start kindergarten, they turn 6 a few months in. So they're already older. So the good thing about that with my daughter is like I felt like she was more mature. And anyway, so I put them in kindergarten and instant problems. I mean, my son was, I was getting calls like every day. They were sending him home. Violent outbursts, screaming, throwing things, hitting other children, just not listening, not staying put, getting up during work time, refusing to do certain things, getting very frustrated. And it got scary because I'm like, they're going to kick this kid out of school. And then what I'm going to do? I can't keep moving my kids' schools every time somebody gets kicked out, right? They already had IEPs because they did developmental preschool because they did have a couple delays that qualified them for that. And so they already have an IEP, but I'm like, I need to get these boys checked out. So this is how much of a mess the system is to try to get help when you're having problems. I go to my pediatrician. She's like, just call your behavioral health number on the back of your insurance card. So I call them. They refer me to one company. I do an intake. The woman, I think, hates children. They don't tell me that there's nothing to entertain my kids there, but we're going to have to sit for an hour in a room while I talk to this woman about their bad behavior. And it was awful. These boys were bouncing off the walls. They were running around laughing. She was getting mad. She was giving me dirty looks. We leave the evaluation, and at this point, I'm in tears. And I'm thinking, okay, we got through that. Maybe the next part will be good. Nobody ever contacted me. I never got set up with the things that I was supposed to get set up with. So I just call them and say, hey, we're going with somebody else. Like, I don't know. You guys aren't helping us. I meet a mom in a mom group because I posted about this, and I'm like, what do I do? She has the same insurance as us. So she said, hey, I go through this company, like, just check them out. We've had a good experience. So we have a virtual intake because they do everything virtual in this company, which I still don't know how I feel about it. But again, I expected more of an actual evaluation of them and their behavior and what other people around them think. I had an intake. She referred me to psychiatry. Psychiatry gets on. We have a quick conversation. Yep, they have ADHD. And I just don't know how they come to that conclusion so quickly. And they offer medication. Now, with them, I was more motivated to consider medication because we're actually having like real life problems. And I was worried about their future. So I did start them on clonidine, which is actually a blood pressure medication that has indications for ADHD. So they put them on a low dose of that. It was supposed to help them sleep and with their focus. It has made such a difference. Their school noticed it. Their daycare noticed it when I hadn't even told them that they started medication. They're like, something is different in them. I'm able to redirect them easier. They're more focused. They're actually participating in stuff. So it has been a change, which tells me it likely is ADHD, right? But I'm still concerned that they never had a real evaluation. Like, there was no evaluating their behavior. I talked to the psychiatrist on the phone, and he just came to this conclusion. I also find it strange that, like, people say that it's hard to get a kid diagnosed with with autism, which hasn't been my experience because I don't even think my kids are autistic. And they already referred us to get an autism evaluation. They're like, yeah, they might be autistic too. And I'm like, I don't think so. But the psychiatrist recommended it, and I wasn't sure, so I wasn't really going to pursue it. But we met with their case manager, who was great. I'm really looking forward to dealing with her. She set us up with a mentor for each kid, a respite program, and equine therapy. So I'll come back and talk about those and how those are going. So I'm looking forward to that. She thinks one of my sons was stimming because she said when he got nervous, he was doing this certain movement with his hand that I've never noticed. So she's like, just, if you're comfortable, do the evaluation. Like, the worst that can happen is they tell you no. If you do take him and he does get diagnosed, then you know. And I have a friend who works in special education, and she's always been on board too. Like, your boys are not autistic. So I text her and I'm like, I'm so confused. Like, people always say it's hard to get a child diagnosed with autism, but I feel like they're pushing this diagnosis on me. Like, everybody's like, take them to get evaluated. And she's like, if more than one person is saying it, take them, get them evaluated. If they do diagnose them, you have all these other services that open up to you, which is great. But I feel scared to label my children something, have that label follow them through their life and possibly impact them in any way, and they don't have it. So it scares me. I do feel like overdiagnosing in kids might be a thing. And I hate to say that because, again, I like to put my trust in these professionals, these medical professionals. But why are we just offering up meds like this when they haven't even monitored their behavior, gotten input from anybody? I could just be a mom. I could have, what did Gypsy Rose's mom have? Munchausen by proxy, and I could just be wanting my kids to have ADHD and telling you that they have these symptoms. You have no way to know if they're true. I did an intake for Jasmine because I do want to get her reassessed, but like if the assessment is just me talking to the psychiatrist, is it even worth it? You know, but I do have some concerns about like her eating habits and things that are really going to impact her health and her future. So I'm going to do it, maybe get her a more extensive evaluation and see where we go from there. But that's where we're at. I'm skeptical and I hate that. I don't want to be skeptical about something like this, but I'm going to do the autism evaluation because I believe that that is in person. It's more extensive, and I think they also evaluate for ADHD at the same time. So at least I'll feel more comfortable knowing that we did a more extensive evaluation. I'm just going to talk over these dogs because I keep pausing and it's irritating me. We're going to continue with the meds for the boys. We're going to do the mentoring, the respite, and the equine for all three and see where that gets us. As far as an adult trying to get diagnosed, if you're trying to do it, let me know in the comments what your experience has been. I'm so curious if anybody else feels like adults are being underdiagnosed while kids are being overdiagnosed, which is it's just so crazy to me. So let's talk about it in the comments. Let me know what your experience is, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to share my journey on ADHD with my kids. Next time, I think we're going to talk about something very controversial. I think I'm going to make a video about an experience I had that made me think that white privilege is really a thing. Don't come for me. It's going to be a good one, though. I have stories to tell. So if you stuck around, thank you so much. I hope you liked the video. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, come back, because together is a beautiful place to be. Bye, guys.